So how weird was it for you though, whenever your second single off your album, The Real Me, charted on the USA Indie Alliance Top 10?
Bloody weird. I
I bet.
I didn't really know that it had happened. I said my friend, and he sort of works as this quasi-American agent, really, I suppose, Rocker Bob. He has a radio show as well that he was spinning it on. And he, don't know, he handed it to someone who then ended up playing it someone else, and somehow it kind of got its way around and fell into this top 10. But I didn't know that it was around, so I wasn't looking for it. And it popped in there within like the first week as well, which apparently was unheard of. And he sent me a message saying, "Oh, congratulations." I said, "On what?" He goes, "We've made the indie top 10." I went, "Oh, God," and he goes, "No," and he sent me the photo of it. I thought, "Wow, bloody hell, look at that." So it was really quite, it was surreal, but you only get to enjoy it for I'm a big believer in enjoy a moment and then move on, because with the music industry changing so rapidly, if you try and sit on a glory for too long, you just get upset by the next band. So I sort of tried to enjoy it for a few days, but it is the strangest thing, because the next day someone else releases a record that can bump you straight out that position. So it was nice, and it was a great conversational piece to have. But as I said, it was very much focused about the next single then beating that one, was the aim.
It's weird how like music though can be forgotten so easily, but then remembered so quickly. Because I've got a friend, he's in a band, and his name's Ashley Grant. He was in a punk band when he was like 16 years old, and they released one EP. That's it, and a single, and then they broke up. 40 years later, well, 35 years later, they get a phone call, and this guy's like, "You guys have the most sought after punk album of all time, that EP." And they're like, "We're going to do a reunion." And they did a reunion, they did a few shows, and then they released, finally, after 40 years, their debut album.
I don't know, none of that came through on my end. I'm sorry.
My buddy Ashley is in a band, and they had a band when he was like 16 maybe, and they released an EP, and it was the most sought after EP, I guess, punk EP. Well, they thought nothing of it. They broke up and shit. 35 years later, he gets a phone call, and they're like, "Hey, your album's the most sought after punk album right now. Do you guys want to do something for the anniversary?" They got back together and released their debut album 40 years after the EP. So it's the longest amount of time between single and album.
I know one of my good music mates did something similar, that they had a band in the 80s, wrote an album, never got around to recording it. And then in lockdown, all somehow combined and reformed to put this album out. Something like, again, like 30 years or something, like after they were meant to record it.
Their joke is that they're the laziest band. It just took them that long. But that's crazy how like you have the success and then you like think you're done with it and you leave, and then years later people's like, "We remember you," so you're like, "Well, now I got to do something."
But it's funny too, because there's a song on the record called "A Night with," on my record called "A Night with Stilettos," and I wrote that the foundations of that when I was 16. And then sort of evolved over the years a bit. I actually recently, not so long ago, found the original lyrics for it too, which was quite funny. Surprisingly, how much was similar. There's also all sorts of weird references to like cigarette smoke, like hazing amongst wars, trying to be overly poetic. But I remember I kind of got to a point where I was so fed up with playing it, because I've been playing it night after night after night, and I dropped it from the set for a while, and then people coming up to me saying, where'd that song go? We love that song and stuff like that. And so even those things can stay with people, like the songs. And for a long time, I didn't enjoy it, and I sort of really fell out of love with it. But I had to keep playing it because in my eyes, the songs are mine when I write it, and they're mine when I record them. But as soon as I release them, they become everybody else's. You know, they like, I didn't choose the real me to chart. The people did. So if I'm fed up with playing a song, I need to get over that and find a way to fall back in love with it, whether changing up the way I play it, maybe meddling it in with something to really get my interest. Because you know, it's I'm not a big believer in these bands that refuse to play songs because they played. You know, I think that's what happens when you release music or write music.
It seems like. Sorry, bud. Didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, I was just going to say, because it seems like, you know, I'm never the best choice on this thing, so I'm too close to it. Like, The Real Me was never intended to be a single. I just thought it was a good album song. And I was going to, there's a track on the album called She's Done It All Before. I thought that should be a bit vaudeville and a bit more. I thought, that's a single. And I was playing the album to a few people and said, oh, what do you think? You know, what would be your three choices? And Do I Turn You On, Crime of the Century with a sort of two clear cuts. But everyone kept coming back to The Real Me. And I kept saying, no, it's not that. It's a good song, but it's not a single. And everyone said, no, it's got to be The Real Me. And so I sort of begrudgingly thought, well, you know, I'm never wrong, but maybe on this occasion I might be. So I released it, and that was the one that charted and has become the most, you know, commercially successful song, you know, in a way. So I don't always know what's best.
It seems like with a lot of artists that I've seen interviews with, or even when they've talked about it, it seems like the song that they liked the least became the more popular song. Like with the band Kiss, for instance, I Was Made for Loving You. They hated that song because they didn't want a disco track, and it became one of their biggest hits.
Well, it's like, was it the Beastie Boys with I Wanna Rock? That was written as a parody of pop rock music and not becoming, you know, their biggest song. I know Fight for Your Right to Party were, you know, that whole thing was a big joke to them. They ended up being their biggest hit. You know, so it's funny because there's also songs that you think would do really well that don't sometimes, or songs that I love that just don't work like live as well, which is a hard one because a lot of the music I write can be quite challenging to pull off live because it's got big guitar harmonies and vocal harmonies going on in things, and you know, different sort of movements within the songs. To play them live is really hard, so I've got to rewrite a lot of them, and a lot of them don't work live. Like Love Symphony #1 sort of works, but it's kind of medleyed in with other stuff because I just can't get away with it acoustically anyway. As it is, you know, it's a really hard one to play live. So, you know, because it's filled with all the backing. And a better guitarist than I, no doubt, may make a YouTube tutorial one day of it, playing all the bits, you know, in one thing. But as far as I'm concerned, you know, it's a hard one to play live. But I need to have it in there because it's the most recent single.
So how do you do the live though? Because it's just you, right?
Yeah. So in the studio, it's all me doing everything. And then I will have bands with me, depending on like where I'm touring or how long the tour is or what the sort of shows are. For the most part, and particularly at the moment, as we're kind of just getting our feet post-COVID, is acoustically, you know, and it works. Some songs really lend themselves to being, like The Real Me really lends itself acoustically really well. And others not so much, because a lot of the songs are on piano, I write on the guitar and transpose to the piano. I don't tend to write on the piano and transpose to the guitar very often, so they can sort of be, the foundations of the song usually guitar orientated. But it's just trying to remember what I've done when I get into the studio and go a bit crazy, or change things last minute and think, oh, what was that chord, you know? And you're trying to figure it out again. yeah, which is why a lot of the songs that I play,